How has your revenue grown over the time of working with us?
Since I started with FounderBrands, I was barely touching that 10K. And now I'd say we're probably over doubling that. As high as almost 20K, which is pretty awesome. X has become a great source of revenue and leads for me. Creating that consistency is a huge milestone. I see the followers continue to grow and the engagement on my account just get even more and more significant, but it's not a massive account. And I'm seeing huge revenue numbers just from that small amount. So if you double, triple, quadruple that number, and I think the sky's the limit.
So super excited about this. Just to let everyone know who you are, just do a quick intro, what you do, what you sell, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Calcara. I'm founder of Motosaic, formerly known as the Driveway Concierge on X, if you've been following me. I really have a great done-for-you car buying process. So I spent the last couple of years figuring out how to make that process seamless and painless. So that's what I do. And there's lots of ways to help. I can tell people it's got 4 wheels and a steering wheel to give me a call. We'll go from there.
Nice. Awesome. And before you were working with FounderBrands, how were you acquiring clients?
So really tried everything. Did a lot of paid ads, did some SEO investment, lots of referrals, Instagram posts, a little bit on X, just trying to kind of see what would stick. So I tried a lot of it and none of it was particularly successful prior to X.
Okay. And so what were some of the main challenges you faced before? Was it lead gen? Did you feel that the only way to grow was through paid ads or those other marketing methods? And why didn't you think they were working?
So I think it was a combination of a bunch of things. I do say that I have a service awareness problem, not a brand awareness problem. And I think what X allowed me to do was create an identity for myself and then also build what I would call marketplace confidence so that people understood what I did, where I was coming from, where I was operating from. That ended up kind of helping over time build credibility. And since my product is a little bit slower to sell, my sales cycle is longer, right? It takes time. So you have to kind of build rapport with your community and all that. So X was really something that, over time, we've seen a lot more return on that investment as, my personal brand's grown and people are more familiar with me. I'm kind of becoming the car guy on X, which is pretty cool.
Okay. So before you started working with FounderBrands, what was your monthly revenue?
Before you guys, I was kind of just trying to cross the elusive 10K mark for an entrepreneur, kind of bumping up against that a couple times, but now I've kind of surpassed that, kind of in the mid-teens to as high as almost 20K. So which is great. And now that's becoming more consistent. So, that's one of the big pieces, once you kind of, pass that 10K threshold, you want to start seeing consistent output. So you can kind of get more predictability, which is important. So we're getting there. X has become a great source of revenue and leads for me. So creating that consistency is a huge milestone.
Okay, awesome. And just to clarify, we're talking about monthly revenue, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we've been working together for a while now, about 7 months, though in the first few months, you saw a lot of growth and especially a lot of growth after we started to build your reputation, your authority in the last 3 to 4 months. How has your revenue grown? How has your business grown over the time of working with us?
Yeah, right. So since I started with FounderBrands, I was barely touching that 10K revenue. And now I'd say we're probably over doubling that, which is pretty awesome. So it's really taken some time, but we've gotten there and the teamwork between myself and FounderBrands has been awesome and couldn't be more excited.
Do you see a path to continued growth, maybe another doubling over the next 6 to 12 months? Just by working with you and knowing you, I see a clear path. Do you also share that commitment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see the followers continue to grow and the engagement on my account just get even more and more significant with every passing day because the posts that we're getting really creative in our posts, which is fun. And we're starting to have a lot of, just fun with the brand and the content and what we're doing. So I don't see any reason why, I'm at 2,500 followers, which is significantly more than I had before. But it's not a massive account and I'm seeing huge revenue numbers just from that small amount. So you double, triple, quadruple that number and, I think the sky's the limit. So I think that, like I said, the consistency and sort of not worrying where the leads were going to come from. I know they're going to come from X and other referrals and that type of thing, but having that sort of consistent pipeline is important. So I think that that's helping kind of establish that consistency.
Okay, awesome. And were you surprised by the results that you got by working with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that beforehand, I had floated around 400 or 500 followers for maybe almost 2 years. I was kind of quote unquote active on X and that just really wasn't going anywhere. And now we're over 2,500, something like that.
Yeah. Growing fast.
Yeah. It's pretty cool how I think the value of my brand on there far exceeds the 2,500 followers I have because I think the posts and everything are just getting a lot more visibility than that.
Yeah. And that's great. Which leads me to outside of revenue, how has building your personal brand affected you in other ways, like your reputation, for example?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I was saying the other day, there's 3 or 4 friends in real life commented that they follow me on X now. and like were aware of things that I didn't even know they did. And it was kind of, I was like, really? I was like, okay. So like, I think that was pretty interesting. And then, it is great to see all of the leads come in from X, and then like future clients telling me that they've been following me for a long time, love the content, are really interested in what I'm doing. And then also like that I'm approaching it from a different angle. So that is pretty cool to see. So while, those are all kind of indirectly tied to revenue, I think it is cool to see the message that I'm delivering sort of spreading out in a way that resonates with folks.
Yeah, that's great. And can you describe what your content creation process looked like before working with us? You said you were on some different platforms, semi-active on X. What was your process before FounderBrands?
I had tried to create some frameworks that I would operate in, particularly like on Instagram. I would have kind of like 3 sort of styles that I would post and just try to repeat within those kind of, just so I knew what I was expected to deliver for myself on like a semi-regular basis. That wasn't particularly effective. It just sort of just populated my Instagram, which was fine. And X was, I didn't know how to write for X. I think there's a right and wrong way to kind of capture folks' attention. So what I did post wasn't very effective. Now with Founders Brand, being able to sort of make sure I, showing up every day and sending my message out there and getting my message out there, I think also allows me to kind of create content that's sort of one-off. And when I do have ideas, I can kind of spend some more time building those out myself and sort of supplementing the regular showing up that I'm doing here on a regular basis.
Awesome. So definitely a big difference from before and after. So basically, you didn't really know what to do on X before working with us. And then since working with us, we've shared with you and we've done for you the content creation on X and gotten you a lot of results. Would that accurately describe how things have been going?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was on X before, it was sort of just hope and pray, right? It's like you said, you post it on there, you're like, okay, this sounds good. And then, I think one of the struggles too is showing up every day and making sure that you find time and carve out time to create that content. So now it's much more intentional and, clearly showing up makes a big difference in the algorithm and makes a big difference in just kind of how people perceive me and my brand and what I'm doing for the marketplace.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Cool. Can you tell me about a time where you drove a new client from X, maybe in the last couple months, and maybe one of your bigger clients? Feel free to anonymize any of the names.
To be clear, almost, I'd say 70% of my clients now are coming from X. The rest mostly being referrals. There's plenty of times where I've driven revenue from X and clients from X. So I think like X has really been a great opportunity for me to kind of explore additional services based on what my clients are needing. So in a couple cases, we've developed some fleet management services that have emerged from, folks on X reaching out to me, asking questions on if I can help them in certain situations. And with that has kind of been an opportunity for me to kind of grow my brand and grow my service offerings through there. Not only has X brought in sort of traditional revenue, it's also opened up new opportunities for revenue that I hadn't previously thought about.
What does the actual process look like when someone reaches out to you and wants to hire you that they've found you on X? Are they DMing you or how does this whole thing work?
So a lot of DMs, I'm kind of on top of those and track incoming DMs, but then a lot of warm conversations where I think that folks are kind of looking at, a brand like mine where it's a little unfamiliar in the sense of the service that I offer. So there's a lot of questions around kind of like, what do I do? How can I help them? And I think that, they appreciate that there's a person behind the brand. That makes sense. So they're talking to me and that really makes, an easier sale where that, we're able to kind of talk to each other and kind of work through, what their questions are and then hop on a discovery call together. It works out pretty well.
Gotcha. So it's really awareness, then it's a DM, and then it's a conversation, and then it's eventually we're closing the deal shortly after that. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. And I'm always kind of getting people on discovery calls quickly. So that helps. And then, get them on there and have a conversation because that's what people really want is to kind of have a one-on-one sort of dialogue about what their questions are, what their needs are, and how we can kind of fulfill that.
Yeah. In my experience personally, I found that the leads that come from social media from a personal brand, I call them pre-sold. They're easy to close because they have already seen your content. They trust you. They know you're an expert. Have you seen a lot easier closes coming from social media, specifically X?
100%. Yeah. And I think that people are a combination of knowing me personally, just from the sense of seeing me show up every day, which I think is really important. Combine that with social proof that I put on X, where it's here's, examples of accomplished deals. They see that kind of my perspective is kind of representing them as opposed to, dealerships or anything like that. So by the time they're on the phone with me, they're pre-sold a number of capacities, right? So that makes the conversation smoother and there's less around qualifying me, but more qualifying each other in terms of like, what do they need? And let's make sure we get that taken care of as opposed to kind of proving or feeling like the need that I need to build trust with them because they do trust me and they've seen me. And that's something that takes time, right? It's not something that's going to happen a month on X, right? It takes a lot of showing up and a lot of months of kind of consistent posting. And that's where Founders Brands, I think, really differentiates itself and adds a ton of value because, like I said, every day showing up is important, right? And that kind of keeps you top of mind. So by the time that, a client, reaches out to me on DMs, they've been following me for, call it 7 months, right? I mean, that's 200 plus days of posts. So, it's like, it becomes one of those things where I'm a quote unquote household name to them already.
That's so cool. Awesome. Based on what you've seen so far working with Founder Brands, where do you see your business in this next 6 to 12 months?
I kind of laugh because it's like, I'm getting so much business now from X and it's only going to grow in terms of followers and reputation and all of that. It's a great opportunity for me to start hiring people, finding ways to improve my margins and improve that revenue and build more product offerings that are kind of aligned to the market and what that's presenting, right? I think I've had a couple different services that I offer to my clients, and as X starts to make up a large chunk of my revenue, I'm making sure that I'm meeting the needs of those clients, which may be slightly different than local ones or referrals and that type of thing.
Yeah, that's great. So you're kind of testing out new offers with your personal brand and finding product market fit for tangential offerings. That's a really cool market research tool that I think a lot of people don't really take advantage of.
Yeah. In my case, a lot of folks are somewhat familiar with just kind of knowing what car they want, and can somebody just make the process easier? So, on X in particular, somebody DMs me and says, "Hey, I'm looking for this vehicle. Can you go get it for me?" And that's really all they need. And that's something that, is sort of easier and sort of low hanging fruit, which is great because it's, volume for me and easy for them. And it's, like you said, pre-sold. They already have a problem. They're articulating what they need done, and it's meeting that need for the market. So it's great.
Cool. What surprised you about working with Founder Brands?
I didn't realize how much time it takes to show up every single day and the impact and difference that it makes. I was probably showing up a couple times a week, and I thought 1 or 2 posts would do it, and it clearly doesn't. The velocity in which, my followers started to accumulate once I started showing up, after a couple months of diligent posting, that really surprised me because I don't want to say it certainly isn't easy, but having Founders Brands to kind of help manage that and help execute on that plan, it was awesome. So it exceeded my expectations.
Awesome. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with the viewers?
I think that one of the cool things about working with you guys is that, it allowed me to also get better at X and posting and learn how to do it. So showing up every day is something that takes a lot of time from your day to day, right? But I do want to be active, and I am active on X personally as well. So when I do have ideas or thoughts or posts that I want, I can really kind of lean into those and not feel like I have to obligate myself to post every day. So it becomes more of a like a passion post, if you will, right? This is something that I really want to show someone or talk about or work through. I can do that on my own too, because there's, we can supplement each other's posts, and that's where it becomes a cool opportunity. And I am loving that I'm getting quote unquote better at posting on X too, learning from you guys because you're obviously very talented at it. That's
fantastic. Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you spending the time, and looking forward to continuing to grow your account and grow your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Colin.